christiangeekcentral.com.
Hold still! You lied to me! You lied to me! In the face, in my face. Put it in the peanut butter. In the face, in my face, in the face, in my face. In the face, in my face.
I thought you said this guy was a Christian. What is this?
Liberate tu teme.
As we're wrapping up, we're not that close to the end here because I just have some thoughts I'm going to spill out at you right now. But there's no DS9 shawarma today. Instead, Matt and Kim are going to share a rebuttal to my glowing review of Batman vs. Superman. Now, there are spoilers mentioned in their comments, which is why it's coming after the credits of this show instead of like during the main content of the show. So just know that really you should see the movie before you come here and listen to their take on it. So yeah, if you haven't had your fill of negative reviews elsewhere, which they are all over the place, they're going to be echoing some of those same reactions floating around, as well as a few that I hadn't heard yet. It's so interesting to get the reactions to this movie. In a number of cases, I feel like I saw a different movie entirely. Like tons of little logistical complaints about the story or some bit of logic or something that others had in numerous reviews that I'm like, really? That made perfect sense to me, without any conscious effort on my part to fill in any gaps. I just am baffled. And I mean, I could try to go through one at a time and explain what seemed obvious to me, but that's just an endless rabbit trail into, that's not the kind of content I'm really interested in, or that I think is the strength and purpose of this podcast. And honestly, I don't think approaching it like that is going to help the folks who are having problems with those issues enjoy the movie better, in my opinion, because obviously for them to enjoy it, well, the logic should have been clear to them at the time they watched the movie. I don't know that anyone can really enjoy an experience they once hated after going home and doing their homework on it. I mean, I'm not going to rule out anybody. I'm sure there are people like that, but I'm not one of them. It's hard for me to imagine. And I guess that's part of my point and where I'm heading here is that we're all so different. And I think that's worth remembering. Even among negative critics, I've heard differences on what was strong and weak about the movie. Two people will say, I hated this movie. And one person will say, yeah, it was bad because blah. And he'll say, oh no, that was fine. It was really bad because blah. And you say, oh, well, that was fine, but I blah, blah, blah. So it's even among the negative critics, and that's really true of positive criticism of, well, different people will be like, oh, this really excited me. And oh, okay, that was okay, but this really excited me, So, I mean, it's interesting to see, two people who will hate it, but disagree on what was bad, and then others will hate it, sometimes for the exact same reasons. I can produce people who know and care about the art of filmmaking and writing that hate the movie, but others who care about the art of filmmaking and writing who love it. Though I would wager, I don't have any data except for just the reviews that I have run into online, I would wager that more film and writing buffs dislike it than like it, at least the ones that are making their thoughts public. There is much passion in the negative criticism of this movie, as there often is in both positive and negative reactions to entertainment. And in this case, I'm just not sure what to attribute that to, given some of the same critics giving passes for far less heated criticism of movies that were likewise received with mixed reactions. It's interesting to kind of watch the IGN reviews if you watch the IGN channel on YouTube, and other reviewers like that. I'm like, really? It's you guys are really going hard on this, and maybe it's because they really wanted it. And so they wanted it to be a certain way, and so their disappointment is really great. I don't know. There's just so many interesting variables that I can't possibly track down. Many critics will make it sound like a brainless, illogical slugfest. And I'm no genius. I don't want to say that flippantly, as if to say I'm no genius, but I am pretty smart. No, seriously. I'm not like this super bright, intelligent guy. But I mean, if you've been listening to the podcast and watching the YouTube channel, I hope you've seen that I do like to approach movies with a great deal of thought. as do others I know who loved this movie. So, I mean, it's not like we can't make this simple distinction of the people who love it are the ones that really like to be thoughtful and think critically and discern their way through movies and art and stuff like that, and the people who love it are not like that, and it's not that simple a distinction. It's clear to me that those of us who love it can't simply say that those who hate it are heartless robotic snobs, as the thought has certainly popped into my mind. Like, no, Paeter, you can't really say that. You can't say that. And likewise, those who hate it can't assume that those who love it have no understanding and appreciation for the arts of filmmaking and writing and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think we're just, even if we don't voice them, I would wager that we're all pretty quick to make assumptions about the people who have a different view from us. And some of that's probably connected to our defensiveness and finding our identity in the wrong places. Stay tuned to this podcast, folks. That is a huge issue that we all struggle with, certainly, maybe especially as geeks. So I think that creeps its way into this. I suspect there's something deeply subjective, maybe even psychological going on here. I mean, I don't want to make too big a deal out of this, but it's really been an interesting thing for me to kind of try and sort through mentally. Like red, the color red has a common connotation of warmth, right? But it also has highly individualized connection to countless memories and experiences that are unique to each person. And I think the same is true of this movie, and I mean really of all creative products. I just think I'm noticing it more with this movie. For example, to some people, Zack Snyder's style is all about spectacle and little substance. And I've heard that from more than one high-profile, well-produced kind of reviewer on YouTube. They're quick to kind of make this pronouncement about Zack Snyder as a director, that he's all about style and no substance. And whereas I see Zack Snyder as a guy who at times seems to understand my psychology so well that he can create mood, highlight plot points, emphasize character, and tons of other things by the way he uses slow motion, by the way he uses shot composition and lighting, and yes, even CGI effects. My particular life experiences they just seem to be a good fit to be tuned in to receive and understand stories the way he tells them. Whereas the mental makeup and experiences of others, I think, just don't position them to intercept that signal. They're just kind of like, they're not primed in the right way. I don't know. And that's not, I want to be clear. That's not like they are less somehow because of that. They're just not tuned in. It's like literally a radio frequency. They are tuned in to a different frequency on the radio, Now you can argue, and I think you maybe argue very well, that it could be financially unwise to hire a director like that, So, yeah, I mean, I'll get behind that. I mean, we'll see how the box office does. It did gangbusters the first weekend, but I mean, it could dramatically drop off with word of mouth. I mean, I don't know. Then again, we had, critics bombing it for, half a week before it had a gangbusters weekend. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But I mean, I can imagine it going either way. But I mean, let's say it bombs. Then you could certainly, say, well, it was unwise. It was financially unwise to hire a director like Zack Snyder. He is not a bankable director. I think you could maybe say that. But our words lack precision if we just call him a bad director, or conversely, if we call him a good director, he's an awesome director, and we say that all the time. There's so much passion and desire to express ourselves about these things that we neglect precision of language in favor of short, objective expressions because we don't have time for that, the same way that we don't have time to really, research issues. And so we watch, a little news blurb and stuff like that, and then feel like we've interacted with that topic because three talking heads debated it for 10 minutes before a commercial break, Oh, that's, no. I'm getting off on a little bit of a rant there. But I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, we can't take these conversations too terribly seriously because we don't give the time that they really need if we want to take them seriously. You might even be checking out and bored and right now and be like, Paeter, you are giving way too much time to this. This is not worth it. And at the end of the day, in one sense it's not. In one sense it is, because I think that there's just some worthwhile things to think about as we approach how we look at entertainment. When we say that we really love something, it was awesome or whatever, and it's just anyway. I'm getting off my notes here, but so yeah, like I said, there's so much passion and so much desire to kind of express ourselves, get our thoughts out there, be heard, that we neglect precision of language in favor of short, boom, objective expressions. And myself, I include in this. I mean, I called this movie great in my forum subject about it at the forums at Christian Geek Central. And some objectively expressed ideas slipped out a few times during my review, I'm sure, though I'm trying to get better about that, as I think it's useful and promotes friendly interaction the more subjective our language is on these things. I do think that's really valuable to, whenever possible, be as subjective as we can in our language, because otherwise we're just gonna alienate people, and then what's the potential for connecting there and being doing something that really matters in their life, if we lose connection because of our choice of words or tone. Now, you might have noticed that I've been steering further and further away from scoring in my reviews, and don't even really make any recommendations anymore, except theoretically to myself as a time traveler, right? And my plan is to keep using that format. But in this instance, I gotta admit, not so much to be helpful as to try and just solve an interesting puzzle. I'm trying to figure out how to predict who will enjoy this movie and who will not. Of course, the internet has already given the usual lazy responses that directly or indirectly insult the camp that doesn't take their view, and I already kind of touched on that. I'm really trying to figure out an informally statistical model to predict who will like it and who won't. In a just the facts ma'am kind of way, if this is true of such and such a person, they are more likely to enjoy it, And I don't mean if they're an idiot, they're more likely to enjoy it, That's the internet. I'm trying to do something a little different here. I have tried to figure out common ground for the different camps on this movie, but it's tough. It's tough. I thought, and I even said in my review, I thought story lovers would maybe have trouble. But then I talked to a guy I know and would describe as a film writing uber geek, and he loved this movie. And he and I usually have very different views on movies. It's guaranteed, if he likes it, I'm going to hate it. If I love it, he's going to hate it, And there's just no accounting for taste, as they say, I've heard from comic fans who both love and hate this movie, so that's no help. And same for non-comic fans. So, based on just kind of quietly taking in what other people are saying about this movie, and also as they kind of give away, intentionally or not, their background and where they're coming from, I'm starting, I think, to develop maybe a couple theories that will hopefully be helpful. If anybody really wants to try and solve this puzzle before they put out their, $8 or $10 or whatever it is in your local theater to go see it. If you enjoyed Man of Steel, give this one a try. Enjoying Man of Steel doesn't guarantee you're going to like it, I don't think. But if you didn't enjoy Man of Steel, don't bother. Don't bother. Unless you want something negative to think or talk about with someone who will enjoy being around you for that. This is maybe the most important tip I could give, is that if you enjoyed Man of Steel, give this one a try. If you didn't, don't bother. There's no reason for you to think that you'll enjoy this. But I'll still add a few more that I think might be useful. If you like the kind of the fun of the Marvel movies, or want superhero movies to be fun, then I probably don't know what you mean, because I thought both Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman were very fun. But even so, you and I probably think different things are fun in movies. And so I would wager that if you like the fun of Marvel movies and you want your superhero movies to be fun, I don't think Batman vs. Superman is for you. If you disliked what you saw in the trailers for Batman vs. Superman, you may not enjoy it. And then my notes got a little bit mixed up here. I'm going to end up repeating myself a little bit, but at this point in my notes, I was like, let me see if I can nail down 5 traits. So here we go. I'm going to wager that the person who enjoys this movie the most will be someone with the following 5 traits. So you guys can be a part of this test with me, okay? I'm not guaranteeing you're going to enjoy this movie. I'm just saying the person who enjoys this movie the most will be someone with the following 5 traits. All 5. Number 1. They care about these DC characters, but they don't have a strong vision for how they should be portrayed. I see a lot of the negative criticism being based on ideas that people have that they bring to the theater with them about who these characters are and how they should be portrayed. That Superman should be a certain type of person, a certain type of hero, or that Batman should adhere to certain things, you know. So this is an interesting thing because it does shrink the potential audience quite a bit for you to care, because I do think it's probably important to care about these DC characters in some fashion. I'm being really vague about that purposefully. But to also not have a strong vision for how they should be portrayed. Number 2 is what I mentioned before. You enjoyed Man of Steel. If you enjoyed Man of Steel, I think that's a very valuable component to making you among those who most enjoy this movie. Number 3, you don't enter the theater. This is kind of related to number 1. You don't enter the theater with hopes high or really any significant negative expectations, you know? I think curiosity is a good way to enter these movies. It's just like, well, I wonder, you know? I wouldn't like this if that happened, but we'll see. I wonder what's going to happen. But if you're going into the theater and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Or if you're going to the theater like, well, Man of Steel really sucked. They better right the boat this time. Guess what? I think you're screwed either way, so good luck to you. But I think you've got a good chance if you can walk in flatline in combination with these other traits. I think that definitely increases your chances of enjoying this movie. Walk in flatline. Number 4 of my 5 traits, you like Zack Snyder movies, specifically like 300, Watchmen, and Sucker Punch. If you had trouble with any of those movies, or with Man of Steel for that matter, if you didn't enjoy them the first time you saw them, you know, in other words, they didn't have to grow on you. If they had to grow on you, that doesn't count in this little thing I'm proposing, okay? If you liked Man of Steel, 300, Watchmen, and Sucker Punch all the first time you saw them, and you still like them today, that's going to significantly boost, I think, the statistical chances of you enjoying Batman versus Superman. And number 5, I kind of mentioned this earlier, you don't especially desire your superhero movies to be light/fun. Whatever the crap that means. I don't know what that means. But I mean, if either of those words are kind of like part of your description when you're talking about superhero movies, about like, they just didn't know how to have fun with it, or they, I didn't feel it wasn't fun, or I was like, oh, this is too dark, or whatever, I don't think this is going to be the movie for you. So again, you guys can help me test this. I would especially like to hear from people who all 5 of these things are true of them. And they still had a strong negative reaction to, because I mean, I think there's always the possibility that all 5 of these would be true, and you'd have kind of like, oh, that was good, But I would especially be interested in hearing from somebody who is all 5 of these things are true of them, and they like hated Batman versus Superman. Number 1, cares about these characters but doesn't have a strong vision for how they should be portrayed. You're just like, I'm open to a different take on these characters and what they're going to do and what they stand for, all that stuff. It's all kind of up for grabs, And that's a weird combo, I know, because you got to care about them too. Number 2, you enjoyed Man of Steel. Number 3, you don't enter the theater with hopes high or significant negative expectations. Number 4, you like Zack Snyder movies like 300, Watchmen, and Sucker Punch the first time through, and you still like them today. And number 5, you don't especially desire your superhero movies to be light/fun, whatever the crap that means. Again, this could mean that Zack Snyder is not a financially great choice to direct these movies. It wouldn't shock me either way the box office goes. That'll be interesting to see what happens, but I don't think either result, doing super successful, middle of the road, or terrible after today, I don't think any of those is going to surprise me. But I will say that as a guy who watched so many enjoy hundreds of hours of Smallville, while I just couldn't, well, I'm grateful to have about 5 hours now of Zack Snyder's Superman that I really do enjoy. If you hated Batman vs. Superman, I'm not saying that to throw that in your face. I am bummed for you. I'm never happy when somebody has a bad experience, watching a movie or any kind of bad experience, But take heart, these things do tend to have pendulum cycles to them, and a different interpretation is just a few years away. The time will go faster than you think. Even better than that, while we get carried away being overly positive or negative about things that don't matter, Jesus is on his throne. He's getting ready to make the entertainment that we have right now the most boring thing on the planet. That's part of his agenda, is to bring about amazing things. It's going to be intense for a while, but then after that, it's going to be amazing, and it's going to be nothing but wonderful for those of us who believe in him. You and I have front row seats to all that he's going to be doing. That is an amazing thing.
ChristianGeekCentral.com